right. So my name is Bea Chatfield, and I am here tonight to talk to you about Ringer Park. This is our third community meeting, and I'm here tonight with members of KZLA, our design team, and we've got our outreach coordinator, Michael, who just arrived, I saw, and we've got Shauna Dixon here as well, both from Parks supporting. So thank you all and welcome. And we got some very exciting news. We paused our project last fall to search for some more funding because we were hearing from the community that there were enough needs that were unaddressed by our first phase that we were looking to do, that we sought more funding. And so we are back tonight having received 2 grants. We just recently heard about our most recent grant from the state a couple of days ago. So we are thrilled to share our new scope and our new schedule. And we're going to be showing some of these designs to you, and we hope for feedback, positive, negative, whatever it may be. We want to hear what direction you'd like this plan to go. So if we could go on to the next slide. Here is our agenda for tonight. Intro with our project team, timeline, and goals. We're going to recap the first 2 meetings that we've had, which were back in 2023. We're going to review the revised project scope, show you some new options, and then have some discussion. Now, even though this agenda shows that discussion is item number 5, we actually think it makes more sense to kind of break this meeting up a little bit and have a few opportunities throughout for reactions. So after we discuss, the scope that we already shared in the first 2 meetings, if anyone's new and they have some reactions, that's, the first third, we're going to have responses after that. Then after we show some new ideas for layout, we'll have some responses after that. And then after our playground options. So if we could go on to the next slide. As I said before, I'm here with our project team, Kyle Zick, Rob Barella. I am Bea Chatfield listed at the top. That is my contact information. You can call me, you can email me. I will respond to both. And I think, actually, I'm not sure if Kevin LaRue is here tonight, but we've been working with him organizing and getting the word out for this project. So he's listed as well. He's here. Okay, thanks, Kevin. On to the next slide, please. So just a quick recap. This is what we're trying to balance when we redesign or design a park. We have a number of City of Boston priorities. We've got safety guidelines and regulatory guidelines, parks and recreation goals that are particular to our department, and then community input. And so what we really want to emphasize is we are trying to balance all of these things. And tonight is one piece of the puzzle. So as much as we try to accommodate what people want, because these are your community parks, we always have to balance that with, can we maintain it? Can we afford it? Does it promote walkability? Does it promote accessibility? Does it promote, trying to cool off our city during hotter climate? So all of that is gathered under the umbrella of park design. So if we could go on to the next slide. Here is our timeline. We started off with community meeting 1 for our capital project. There was a comprehensive plan that we worked on earlier that was back in 2020, 2021. So this is for the capital project where we're talking about we're going to build something, shovels in the ground. This isn't just conceptual. Our first community meeting was in June of 2023. Second one was held in person at the community center in September. And then after that, we paused after hearing feedback that more was desired. During that time, we have received funding from the Harvard Alston Flex Fund and the Park Grant, PARC, from the state of Massachusetts. So it's all very exciting, and that's allowing us to show you our new plans. So our new plan ideas, that's going to be tonight. Community meeting 4 is anticipated to be in December, and that is hopefully, if we get enough good direction tonight, we will be able to produce the final plan. And now that we have this grant, we also have a pretty strict timeline that we have to adhere to. So we need to have shovels in the ground late spring 2025. So this is all, we've been trying to get our ducks in a row as far as getting funding, and now it's like, okay, hit the ground running. So we're really looking forward tonight to hearing from a lot of people and hearing their responses and feedback, because we want to start construction next summer and have completion of the park by the following late spring. And that is when we have to have it complete for the grant. So I hope you're all in this with me. I also saw that Councillor Breeden is here tonight, and so, or at least someone from her office. So I wanted to open up the floor if Councillor Breeden wants to say hello, and if there are any other electeds that want to raise their hand, and we can unmute you. Okay. Oh, there she is.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Bea, for hosting this evening. We're very excited to hear that we're moving forward. We're getting more money accumulated to get this project going and hopefully get it across the finishing line. So it's nice to have some really definitive plans, and look forward to the conversation. And thanks to everyone. See, there's 35 people here, so thanks to everyone for taking time to come and give their input to this very important project. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Breeden. If there are any other electeds that are in the house tonight, if you arrive later, then we'll have another opportunity as well. But I don't think there's anyone else. So if we want to move on to the next slide. All right, and so I'm going to pass this off to Kyle Zick of KZLA.
Thanks, Bea. So I'm Kyle Zick, landscape architect with KZLA. Our firm was involved with the comprehensive plan back in 2020 and 2021, and we're continuing with this phase one. But just for orientation and for a little bit of background, we did start this, I think, just after the pandemic, and we had community meetings in fall of 2020 and then the winter and spring of 2021. This plan represents some of the a summary of the things we discussed. The letters here are only for orientation, not showing any recommendations or anything, just the fact that there was a Little League field, there was a location for a dog park, which we'll talk about tonight. Playground would have been renovated where it is. There was the entry area, the courts would remain, and then there was a woodland with a path system. So then when we were talking to you all in 2023, what is highlighted here was the scope of work. It was primarily the pathway that cuts from Alston to Gordon, and then the woodland pathway, each one of the 5 entrances. And then we were also talking about a dog park. And that was funded in 2023, 2024 for a little over $1.2 million. And the thing I should also point out is it was pathway lighting along the path, this primary path, and some erosion repair and some tree work, because as you all know, there are dead trees and trees that need to be pruned. Now, as Bea already mentioned, additional funding has been secured. So that budget is bumped up about $1 million, and that allows us to do more. I think we're still looking at the entrances and the pathways, but now we're able to talk about the playground and this field. And we'll still talk about a dog park, but we'll talk about alternative locations. So just to reinforce what that scope includes, it's all the entrances to the park. The 2 entrances on Alston Street, Webley, Emery, and Gordon. And those improvements involve accessibility, legibility, and just the quality of the materials, the walking surfaces. So this is a collage of some of those entries, or of those entries, and some will be just like they are today, or subtly different, and some will be quite a bit different. You know, if you think about Webley Road here, you know, we've got a stone wall. We have a gate that restricts access. There is a gate there now. And then the path would be improved. At Emery, there's a small pier that would be added to help identify that location. And we're talking about having some stone edging or curbing to delineate the walkway. And we'll talk about the gathering space next or soon. At Gordon Street, the primary thing there is the path is being realigned. Today it goes up the hill, which isn't accessible. So what you're seeing there in tan takes you to the woodland area, but what's gray hooks a left here and stays downhill, and that would be an accessible route that would gradually build up to the path uphill of the tennis courts. And then at Alston at Glenville, we'd have a gate that could control access. And Alston near Greylock, we're shifting a little bit away from the abutter there and improving some of the materials. So in terms of lighting, the yellow are existing lights and orange are proposed. And generally what we're trying to do is improve the lighting along the pathways. So here where we're changing the alignment of the pathway near Gordon, those lights will shift. There's a gap in the lighting and what is now the path that goes along the outfield of the Little League, and lighting at Alston Street. And then also, depending where some of our site features land, there could be some additional lighting to highlight those. Note that we're not changing anything with the lighting on the courts. So the pathways, there's a small plan here oriented the same way that I was showing the plan before, but Alston Street is on your right-hand side, Gordon's on the left. The Little League field is here and the courts are here. So these numbers help you understand where we're at. This is a cross-section of the path in the woodlands. And we've talked about improving that path so it's accessible and it can be maintained. And it would be hardened. You know, what that material is something we have to determine, but we don't think it would be concrete like the other paths. But it would want to be something durable that can be maintained and would resist erosion. The other paths that we're talking about would be concrete. They're labeled as such. You can tell where we are. We're uphill of the tennis court. We'd be widening this path. And that's one just for usability because of the foot traffic, and you have mixed use here as well. And then also so maintenance vehicles can easily get through here and not break the edge of the pavement as they're trying to get to different parts of the park. Here we are with our back pretty much to Gordon Street. The existing pathway goes uphill on the high side, heading toward the tennis courts, but we would actually follow, there's a dirt path, you know, we call it a desire line on the downhill side of that hill. That's where we would formalize the path so it could be accessible, and we'll put the light fixtures down there. And then if we're at Alston Street, here's the hillside that heads up to the west end. And then we've got an abutter here. So we're shifting the path a little bit to have some planting and some more space. And we'll shift the infrastructure, signs and lights with it as well. I mentioned the gathering space. So just orientation. Here's the playground. This is the main pathway going from Alston to Gordon. And here are the courts. The space, I think the circulation works pretty well in terms of the pathways are reinforcing where people want to go. With one exception, there's a worn path through the lawn here that I think we could formalize. But the real issue is that the center of that circle is worn out. You know, that you can't grow grass there, it's eroding. And that's some because of use. So what we want to do is, one, address the poor drainage. And it could be adding drains, but also repairing the erosion. But we have to be careful around these trees here because we have fairly mature Zelkova trees that we don't want to harm. And then we could add some edging around the circle, along the edges. We could add seating and then have some paved gathering space here that could take a little bit more wear and tear. It could also be used for performances, gathering, and then that would take some of the pressure off the lawn and make that more sustainable. And then also add Ringer Park identity in this low wall. So as you were to approach, you could understand or reinforce what this place is. So that might be a good place to pause just to see. I haven't been looking at the chat to see if people have comments or if people want to comment on what's in the scope or some of these thoughts on pathways or the gathering space.
And this is sort of the first pause point, and this is a bit of a recap from before. So we're going to have 2 other design proposals having to do with playground and the dog run, and then conversation after those 2 as well. So this is just thoughts on entrances, pathways, gathering space, lighting, etc. So Shauna, do you want to call on people? That would be helpful.
Sure. The first person is Bob Pesic. My apologies if I'm not pronouncing it correctly.
Hi, thanks for having the meeting. Quick question on the sidewalks above the courts that would be widened so trucks could use them. Will it be also beefed up? There's a different standard for sidewalks, I believe, that pedestrians use and trucks use, and they beat them up all the time, as I think you referenced. So hopefully you'll put a few extra bucks in there so our own parks trucks don't destroy the walk there. And
Yes.
second,
Yes, the pathway will be thickened so that it can handle that kind of loading.
great. Thank you. And also on the gathering space, you mentioned the grass is gone. That's due to one reason. There's a group called the Vikings that practice there once or twice a week, and they've killed all the grass. That's plain and simple. I live up the street. I see it on a weekly basis. I don't know what they're like. They may be good guys. They practice Viking stuff and they run and they've killed off the grass. I don't know if they have a permit. I asked once before and no one ever answered. If they're not permitted, they should be asked to try another space for a while because they really are hard on it. Nothing against Vikings, but that's the truth of the matter. But it looks nice. You maintain the circle with some improvements, and Ringer Park identification, I think, is important too. Many people walk by and don't even know what park it is or if it's a park. So that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Yep.
Okay, the next person is Zeth. Go ahead.
Let's see here if we can get on video. Ooh, hello. First off, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you also for just to start. I've had a chance to read the master plan and going through all the things in the work you guys done in the last couple of years. I'm excited that this is all happening. So please take everything I say as a proposal and not as a critique on that. The first thing I want to mention, I know you guys have done that lighting assessment. For some reason, some of the lights have disappeared since that plan has been drawn up. I don't know what happened. Rumor has it that the lights had made their way up to the Boys and Girls Club somehow. They're like on a pile somewhere up there. And I'm talking about like the tall lights. I don't know why. They're the ones that mostly were broken and kept getting broken. So I'm not sure what the plan is if they were supposed to be part of this plan or not, or if they were going to be ones that are going to replace it, but just a note on that. Dog park, very interested in hearing about as a user of the unofficial dog park in the field there. I know this is a big part of the community part of Ringer Park are people who do gather there after work and before work to let their dogs socialize and socialize with the humans as well. I've met many good friends from there. So I'm very excited to hear about what the new plan will be. I believe the old plan was changed because of a gas line or something is there and they can't move it. But I'll let you talk about that. I think that's on your agenda to talk about later. And I was excited when the gathering place as well, the ring in the middle. First of all, great branding with Ringer, if we want to take advantage of that. This is the first time I saw it with grass on it. I did like the idea of it being a performance space. I would love to see that we can get like bands to come out and maybe play like small acoustic sets or, use it as a performance space as you had suggested. I think that's awesome having seating in there and that would be great too. So excited to hear more about that and potential options for that. But thank you.
Thank you, Zeph. Just a couple of notes. We received like a 311 note, I think, about the lights. So I'm definitely gonna look into that. And I have a hunch that it's gonna be having to do with the repair of the lights, because there have been broken fixtures in the past. And I know that the Andrea Howard, who's the director of the West End House, is involved with some of those sort of efforts to try and maintain them and repair them. So there's a chance they've been removed in order to repair them, but I'm gonna follow up on it and we'll try and figure that out, because the idea for our project is to augment the lighting scheme that's currently existing in this park. It's not to take those out and replace them. It's just a supplement. So they are important. We need them, and we'll try and find them and bring them back. So I see other people with their hands raised. That was just the low-hanging fruit of your questions. So thank you for your comments.
Okay, the next person is Liam. Go ahead.
So yes, I also wanted to comment on the lighting situation for the field. I wasn't sure exactly which area you were specifically referencing to just now, but I was hoping to draw some attention to the basketball courts, especially during, as the days get a little bit darker this time of the year. It's definitely challenging for the tennis courts and for the basketball courts for people to be able to utilize that lighting in order to participate in sports. We have a very large basketball community who, frequently uses these courts pretty much on a daily basis. And it's very difficult to continue to utilize those things if we're not making use of those lights. So I wasn't sure which specific lights you were referencing a moment ago. But the larger overhang lights, those usually do not work. And the sort of the smaller ones, they're a bit too dim for really to be useful in any of those usages. So yeah, I just wanted to bring this to attention. We have like a very large basketball community, really close knit to the community, so wanted to make sure to bring this to your attention.
Thank you for bringing it to the attention of us. And I think our challenge with the lights around the courts has to do, as you're noting, like it would be nice to have lights for nighttime use or for use when it's dark. And technically our parks are supposed to be closed from what? No, they're open from dusk, from dawn until dusk. There we go. Open during daylight hours. It's an easier way to say it. And so because of the adjacent residential area that's next to the courts, and because our parks are supposed to be basically closed and we're not supposed to be encouraging their use during nighttime, we had, I think we had started to keep those lights off because I think there are lights out there. And our plan was not to reinstate any lighting as part of this phase. So I realize that doesn't land well with you probably, because if you're enjoying playing basketball and you want to play it more, I think it's great that use exists, and I'm happy to hear that it's a strong thing in this community. But I do think that it's just wanted to be upfront that we're not looking to have the park be used recreationally, day and night. So that's why we have this plan as of now. So, are there any other hands?
The next person is Teresa. Go ahead.
Yep, thanks. I'd just like to get back to Bob's comment, and there are some comments in the chat too about the Vikings. So the grass issue in that area is clearly not drainage, it's Vikings. And I don't know whether there was a lot of discussion at the last meeting about this. And I don't know whether there's been any thought given to how to avoid this. Now, and I bought the park right at Emory. So I've watched it, and I can show you pictures of the park pre-Vikings where there was grass that was growing very happily there. And once the Vikings arrived, that was the end of that. So I don't know, but it's a big issue. And I don't have the answers, but I wonder if there's been thought given to how to address that concern.
We've definitely heard about it as an issue. So thank you for sharing that, Teresa. I appreciate that. And your ringside seat, I'm sure has given you some viewing that we all don't have. And our goal here is to, pave it partially in an area that can probably limit Viking use. Again, like, it is a community activity. And so, we hope that if we pave some of it, it will be usable in a way that won't result in the erosion that has happened. So that's the goal. And we listening to the reactions here tonight may make sense for us to pave a little bit more. I think also ideally we would pair this additional paving with some increased infiltration areas and some sort of green infrastructure plantings. We heard a lot of support for that in the past, and we are trying to work with the Office of Green Infrastructure to see if we could have some funding to help us manage that kind of thing. Because as you know, managing our parks is a real challenge, and maintaining our parks is a challenge. So I see some support in the chat for Vikings as well. So I just sort of want to repeat that we're not looking to kick them out, but we're looking to try and reduce their impact. Maybe they'll find other areas of the park, hard to know, but thank you for your input. I appreciate that.
Okay, we have Bob Pesek again. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to add about court lights. I've lived across from the park for almost 3 decades, and dark or light, if it's not raining, there'll be people playing basketball all hours, with or without lights. So, and some time ago, there was a move to add lights there, and I think there was a petition that went around the neighborhood to ask them not to have lights, because for a short time they were on, and it actually attracted a lot of people that weren't playing sports but just hanging out and stuff. So I wanted to add that. And the Vikings might be good guys. I have nothing against them, but they wrecked that circle. So that's the fact of the matter. And if we want that circle maintained, they're going to have to go elsewhere. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Bob. And I think KZLA wants to keep on with the presentation. Let's do that.
All right, so now we're gonna talk, we're zooming in a little bit, not talking about the whole park, but still looking at a pretty good area. And there's a few things in play here, and there's some variables. So we're gonna move around some different program elements and get your feedback on this. So we've got the Emery entrance. Here's the circle we were just talking about, the courts, the existing playground, the yellow line are existing paths, including the dashed one. And then the Little League field is here. So what we're looking at is, where do you locate a playground if you're going to renovate it? Where should the dog park be? And what is the best use of that field? And then there'll be ramifications in terms of the pathways and that kind of thing. So we have 4 different alternatives here to get input on. In all of them, the Little League field is being transformed to a multi-use field. The infield would be removed, the backstop removed. So it'd be open lawn that could be used a lot of different ways. And with that, it opens up some land, and then let's see, what program elements fit. So we'll go through these one by one. In this case, the Little League field was right here. It's pretty easy to see where it was, and the infield is here. But we'd have generally a north-south oriented lawn. Think of it, it could be a soccer field, it could be a place to play Frisbee or whatever. And then there would be a dog park on this edge. Now it'd be a fenced dog park, would have gates, and it's fully enclosed. And then the field would not have a fence around it. The playground would be where it is today. It would be renovated, new modern play equipment. It would still have a water play or splash pad component. And then we know, just to address the walkways, that a lot of people shortcut this turn that, or this path that follows the property line. So the orange line is basically following the desire line that we see out there now. And we would remove the dashed line, which is closer to the residence. So bear with me as I go through all of these, and then I'll show you a summary of all four. So note the dog park in this position, kind of left of the field, playground where it is today. Then all we do is switch the two. And we talked about this in the comprehensive plan, because what you have to imagine, you have to think about is what's the best location and elevation for the dog park or the playground. You know, which one of these elements do we want at the lower elevation closer to the pathway? So you could pretty much interchange these, put the playground adjacent to the field, the dog park in the same footprint as where the playground is now, but with new fencing. The pathways would generally be the same as what I just described. And with the playground here, you could have a cooling feature that would not be just kid dependent. You know, this is like a misting station or something like that. And maybe there's a picnic grove within the trees. And we've got the square footages for reference. I mean, generally, you're seeing that they're a little bit interchangeable, but sometimes the playground will be smaller in square footage than the dog park, or sometimes the reverse. So now I'm going to go to another set of ideas where the field isn't north-south oriented. The field is more east-west oriented. So then these parts, the dog park and playground, move differently. You know, so here we reserve this space for the field, and then the playground and splash pad go below that. And there could be a picnic area associated with that. That's basically where the infield and the backstop is now. And then the dog park in this scheme is where the playground is today. Then we can reverse those. So are there advantages to having this orientation of the field, dog park at that lower elevation, and the playground stays where it is? So a few different moving parts. I can put these all on the screen at the same time so you can contemplate the pros and cons, and we can talk about that. So anyone wants to raise their hand and comment?
Okay, so we have Zeth. Go ahead.
All right. All right. That is not what I was expecting to see. I love all of these, actually. This is much nicer than what I was expecting. I was expecting to see the dog park over behind the tennis courts in the tree area over there and be much smaller. So my thoughts on what I see so far, I think I like 2 or 3 better. And the reason is mostly just to keep the dog park up and out of the play area down there. I think if you put the dog park in the downstairs area, like 1 or 4, most likely people will just not use the dog park and just let their dogs run around that field. Or if they don't want to, deal with other people in that park, in the dog park at the same time. I mean, you still might get that no matter what, but I think it's probably more likely. That's all I got. But I like all 4. I wouldn't be mad with any of these.
That's great. Thank you, Seth. Yeah, so there was a quick question in the chat, someone, and I had thought of this before, so I'm glad someone brought it up. What's going on with why there's a picnic area on the playground? Why does it only accompany the playground on the lower level? I think the idea is that, if the playground is on the smaller side, you could have a picnic area close by. We could also fit picnic areas. Those are sort of more easily added or subtracted. And if there's great support for picnic areas, we can certainly add those in. I think the idea was that, like, if the playground is on the lower level, then it makes sense to have a picnic area close by, because you're going to have kids using it. You're going to have maybe birthday parties celebrated if it's like a picnic shelter kind of thing. But it's a pretty flexible feature. So if we all could sort of focus on the bigger elements, I think, and if you want to voice real support for picnic areas, that's great. And we will definitely hear that. But if we could focus on the main elements, sort of the dog park, playground, location, and the field orientation, that would be great. Thank you, guys.
Okay, next is Bob Pesic. Go ahead.
Thank you. Number one looks pretty good. I had never thought of putting a dog park in part of that ball field, but the dog park would be fenced, you said, and the multi-use field would not be, right? So
Right.
if somebody wanted to not take their dog to the dog park, they'd be running around an unfenced park. And also, it seems to me as a practical matter to keep the playground splash stuff where it is. I don't know about plumbing and all that. It seems to me might be a little less expensive to move that around, but also it's an elevated area, kind of gets away from the other busyness of the park for kids to play, and it's also been there, if that's any kind of reason to keep it there. But yeah, number one looks good, actually. It solves, does a lot of things that many people want, it seems like. So thank you.
Okay, next is Ken. Go ahead.
Hello,
Hi.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. So I like the idea of having the dog park enclosed in a different spot away from the ball field, and away from kids playing games and stuff like that. My only thing is I would like to have more playground space versus more dog park space. And the other question is, why wouldn't we not situate the dog park over behind the tennis court? Because I thought that would be a bigger space.
As far as balancing a number of needs for the dog park location, one of them is we would like to avoid putting a dog park where a lot of existing trees are
In house,
and square footage. And so over by Gordon Road, that entrance,
Mhm.
Gordon Street, there's not actually a lot of available square footage, and we're also trying to create as much distance between abutting houses and the dog run
thank
as
you.
possible. And so that's really, those three things working together make that location quite challenging. And so what we've come up with here are 100 feet or greater from a butter's walls. Basically, we don't want to put a dog park like 40 feet under someone's kitchen window kind of thing. It all would be enclosed. And someone asked in the chat about square footage, if each of these factors, each of these elements, sorry, had square footage underneath it. And our goal for dog parks at the Parks Department is 10,000 square feet is ideal. We can go bigger if we have the space, that's great. Larger than 10,000 square feet lets us have options for, like, here's a small area, small dog area, large dog area, that kind of thing. Our dog parks do go smaller though. If you look at our other locations throughout the city, there are some that are small. So, that would probably mean the nature of the dog park would be a little different. Maybe it would be one size or something, one size dog kind of thing, no divisions. So I don't know if that helps answer some of your questions, but.
Okay. And as far as the playground goes, would the playground still have the same amount of space for the kids to play in?
Yes, yeah, the existing playground is 12,500 square feet.
Mhm.
So if it were to stay in its current location, yes. But in option 3, it's a little smaller, but this is it's a bubble diagram. So could we squeeze a little bit more space potentially? In number 2, it's a little bit smaller, but again, these are diagrams more about position and relative size. So I think that's something we could work on.
Okay. And the ball field has enough space for them to play soccer,
Kickball,
kickball?
softball.
Yep. Yeah, it's not Olympic size soccer by any means. It's definitely youth level, and it's on the smaller side, but it's still a nice contiguous field.
Yeah, it would be sized specifically, I think, under 10. And that is Do you remember the dimensions off the top of your head, Kyle?
Not off the top of my head.
There's a range of sizes that are acceptable for under 10 soccer, but you know, it's a flexible field that could be used for youth soccer leagues if they wanted to permit it for that, yes.
But not big enough for like a teenage or adult size soccer field.
No.
Not regulation size, right? I mean, nothing would stop those folks from gathering and practicing there. My daughter, who's 8, plays in a league that, you know, that when they practice, it's a very small area that they practice in. And when they play, they go to a different field that is larger. So this could be a practice location, but it wouldn't be an official field. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have is Lisa. Go ahead.
Hi. As a dog owner and a parent of kids who used to be much smaller than they are now, I want to say I love the idea of either 2 or 3. Having the playground next to the field, next to the gathering space encourages a lot more family cohesiveness and intergenerational activities. If older kids can be using the field, parents can be in the gathering space, and smaller children can be on the playground in an area that's within eyeshot instead of so removed from where everyone else is playing and spending time. It's such a nice vibe. And the dog park and dog ownership and dog community being so at odds with other parts of the community to the point that it's caused a lot of contention. I love the idea of being up and removed. Dogs being away from where small kids are trying to play, where other activities are taking place. Our dogs can run, they can bark, and we're not bothering anybody up on the field, or sorry, up on the hill, and just gives us some more space in a more secluded area to make that a whole separate thing. But I really love the design 2 and 3.
That's great. Thank you. I think Christopher Wells is up next.
Hey, I just wanted to voice some support for number 2 and number 3 specifically. And a lot of people have said these things, and I think Ellen brought up something in the chat that is really pertinent about like having the playground be accessible because it's sort of on the field level. You don't have to walk upstairs to get to it. It's highly visible, and it would sort of blend in with the multi-use field just for people use. I also think there's a good example of a park like this in the north end of Boston. I forget the park name, but it's on Prince Street, and it has terraces in a sort of similar way that this is sort of laid out. And I think it really adds to like a nice separation between the dog park and the rest of the park. And a lot of times when you're playing on the courts or the playground in that park, you almost don't even know that there's a dog park there. I also had a question about like the materials used in the dog park. Like, would it be grass? What is the base layer there?
It would be a pea stone material. So a stone.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you for your feedback. That was great to hear. And Nathaniel Friedberg, I think.
Yep. Hi. I love these plans. They're beautiful. I love the open field. I think it's great that the walkway is being rerouted. And I'm curious because that abuts my house right there. What will go where the current walkway is? And then I had a question about the picnic area. I just was wondering what that would look like. And I also was wondering if it might be a place where people would gather for less wholesome uses than family picnics, after hours and stuff. Because the park is an urban park. We get a lot of people hanging out and drinking sometimes. And one other issue that hasn't been discussed, but I don't know whether it is really the purview of this meeting, would be there's a lot of vehicular traffic now, like scooters particularly, a lot of loud scooters with no mufflers racing around at night and stuff. So, and during the day. So I don't know if there's any way to deter that, but that'd be great. So that's a few different ideas I threw out there. That's all I got.
Thank you. Yeah, the use of our parks for vehicular traffic is not, it's a difficult one. It's happening throughout. People recognize that there's a cut through, and we're hoping, you know, as part of our renovations to the entrances, the idea is that we're going to have vehicular gates that are kept closed, and then enough space adjacent to the gate where you can have easy passage for people coming and going on foot, or in a wheelchair, but not on a scooter. And I think part of that is design, and part of it is trying to be neighbors who stick up for the right thing. And it's tough, you know, because these guys zoom by you and you can't be like, excuse me, I'm sorry, can I interrupt? You know, like, it's hard, but it needs to be both ends of that spectrum, I guess, is what I'm saying. So I appreciate your feedback, and it's good to hear about that, because we can definitely notify cops in the area to be aware of that kind of activity. They're supposed to stop people. But thank you for your responses, though. Let's see, I think Teresa Conti has her hand raised still.
Yep, thank you. And I wanted to address the scooter issue as well relative to where the playground goes, because as it is currently situated, there's no safety risk from the motor vehicles that are going through the park, but I would have concerns moving it down, and as it is in design elements 2 or 3, for safety for very young children with vehicle. And honestly, the scooters come through very, very fast, and they're being driven by children. And so there is a safety risk there. And so I think that either there needs to be a way of really deterring that, or the safer option may be to leave the playground where it is in a safer location for young children.
Thank you, Teresa. I mean, we would definitely have fencing around the playground to define it and, you know, keep kids from running out. But that's a good point. It would also serve to protect against any kind of out of control scooter activity. I don't know if putting it, I guess, you know, putting it up out of the way without paths nearby would reduce that exposure, but we would, if we do go with the scheme where the playground is on the lower level, that's a great point to bring up, and we would do everything we could to prevent that kind of activity. So that's good to hear. Ken?
Hi. So I like options 2 and 3 because the playground is on street level and the dog park is away and more isolated from the rest of the folks. My thought was, is it you know how you have the orange line that is a proposed cut through or a proposed road instead of the dotted yellow in the corner of Gordon Street? No, I'm sorry, the corner of on the right lower corner. I was wondering if you expand the playground, then you would have fencing around the playground so that people won't be able to cut through. You know how you said there's a natural path that people cut through, and therefore you're going to make it official by putting in the orange path. So if you expand the playground so that there's a fence around it, people won't be cutting through. They will use the official, you know, line in yellow, the dotted one in that lower right corner.
So you're referring to in option 3, the playground could expand further this way.
Correct,
You wouldn't need the orange line. Yep.
correct. That way you give, the kids more space to play in the playground, and, people will follow the path because, they can't go through fences. That's all I
That's a
have.
good point. Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you, Ken.
Okay,
Um,
that's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Samantha Fletcher?
Yes, hi. Yeah, I was wanting to say, I think that in response to Ken's comment, I think that section's also really commonly used because it's really the only quasi picnic area right now with grass that you can sit on. It's a hill, but it's the only place that there's proper grass in the park, honestly, at all. So I do think like adding the picnic area and things like that would also alleviate some of the problems with that false path and things like that, because people are just looking for places that are grass that aren't being always like dogs running around and are still grass as opposed to the gravel areas over there. So I do think that some of the other concerns would change some of that path structure anyway, and how some of the space is used, just because of that is the only place that there's grass. That's not, yeah.
All right, and Christopher.
Hi, this might have been my faulty memory, but what is there in the sort of redoing of the path system, are you guys widening sort of the walkways, or is everything staying the width it is currently? And then if it is widening, what is it going from, and then what is it going to?
Yep, we go back. We are widening. The existing paths aren't all consistent. So if I just stay on some of the things that are already paved, I think you're less than 7 or maybe 6 feet uphill at the tennis court. And that's where we're saying the maintenance vehicles, break the edges, or sometimes they can't even get through. So we would be widening to 9 feet and be consistent on that main spine from Gordon to Alston. Now the path that is other paths that aren't the main spine we'll look at differently, because they might not have the same amount of traffic or same needs. So that's something we still have to study.
And I think we're trying to balance maintainability while also not welcoming people zooming through on scooters. I think it's trying to talk to our maintenance team to figure out where is it that they really need to go. And so maybe there's like a hierarchy between like the 9-foot concrete paths that are intended for truck use, and then maybe some narrower paths. I think that the path through the woodland would probably be narrower. I think just trying to respect some of those tree roots that are in there. We wouldn't want to put something too wide. But yeah, so that is a good point, and that's in development basically. Okay, I see Samantha Fletcher you've raised your hand again, so let's hear from you, and then we'll keep moving on to that.
Sorry, I have one other question. I'm wondering about water and like water fountains. Like currently I don't know if I think there's one by the playground and one towards the baseball courts, but I'm wondering if could be one like closer to the basketball fields or anything like that. I was wondering about some of the plumbing.
Yeah, there's currently water at the playground, and we would have water with the dog park. And we had talked about having a new drinking fountain for the courts. And the plumbing should be able to be worked out for all those locations.
Okay, let's do one more. Ken, you have another thought? And then we'll move on.
Hi, this is Mike, Ken's husband. On the expansion of the paths, it talks about mixed use. So is the mixed use basically use for maintenance equipment and walking, or is there an intent to have other traffic other than pedestrian?
Our parks are not open for bikes, so it's not intended for bikes. As you guys have noted, there is occasional scooter use. We're not trying to design for scooter use. So yes, mixed use does mean our maintenance vehicles and pedestrians. So that's the goal.
Okay, and then on the entrance ways, we would basically put, I mean, the challenge you have is to make it both accessible for wheelchairs and also prevent motorized traffic. Because usually if you can get a wheelchair through, you can also get a scooter or a bike through, so.
Right, so we can't fully armor against bikes, because you're right, that
Yeah.
would mean we'd only be able to have upright people on 2 feet sliding sideways through a vicious stretch of bollards.
Yeah.
So it's really trying to design it in a way that doesn't make it look like a really nice cut through.
Yeah, exactly, like maybe even like offset it or something, so it's not, I don't know, but at least make it difficult to get through, and you did have to slow down at least, you know, versus just blasting through at full speed.
Yeah, well, maybe that's something that we can look at, perhaps like some pavement textures, or maybe there's going to be some like placement of boulders amidst paving by entrances or something to make it so that that like straight shot is not encouraged. So that's a good point.
Okay, thanks.
All right. All right, people keep coming up with comments and we're trying to move along. Nathaniel, quick.
Happening. Sorry. Yeah, I just was wondering what goes where the current path that's being rerouted is. And the other question is a picnic area just like 3 picnic tables, or what is it?
Well, where the path would get realigned, we would remove the pavement, and I think it could just be landscape. Doesn't have to be programmed any further, particularly because it's so close to residents. And the picnic area, I mean, I think we have to figure out how many picnic tables that is and what it looks like, but we're just, it's more than one for sure. And it would be an accessible one, and then we'd have to see exactly what that means in terms of proximity to trees or in the pathway and other features.
Okay, then if I could squeeze one more question in, right there where the path is being rerouted and around the corner going to Alston Street, there's some pretty unsightly rundown red wooden fencing that I don't think the landlord is interested in upgrading. Is there some way to make that less, you know, visually unattractive?
We have to take a look closely at that property line, and there is definitely a condition around that house where I think we are encroaching on their property for some short distance, and then they're encroaching on our property for some short distance. So it's going to need a closer look. And I think as far as screening where, you know, if it's their fence on their property, then yeah, we can't do anything about it, but planting might improve that look a little bit. Because yeah, it's a little haphazard. Definitely noted it. It's unique, you know, so 1 point for that. But yes, we're definitely aware of its condition, and we need to look at that location more closely to figure out sort of what parts of it need to get replaced with new, better fencing. So
that's good. All right, thank you.
Yeah. All right, Kyle, take it away.
Okay, I'm actually going to hand it over to Rob from my office, who will talk more about some of the playground.
Rob, are you a co-host now? There was an issue with him not being able to I don't know.
Oh, but can he be unmuted?
No, he wanted to be a co-host, I think, are you sharing your screen, or is he okay? Okay, no, we're good.
Share.
I see a thing that says Rob.
There we go.
There we go.
All right,
Sorry.
unmuted. Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Rob Barella. I will walk through the playground now. And to preface all of this too, you know, because I know there's some good comments about accessibility and being inclusive with the one, access to the playground, but then also once you're in the playground, to equipment, to furnishings, everything like that, regardless of the location, we will be providing accessible routes to the playground. And then we will have different equipment for everyone with a wide variety of different abilities and so on and so forth. So that's kind of overarching for any playground scheme. Now, we've already kind of covered existing playground during past meetings, so I'll do just a quick overview. But basically, what we have are a few kind of main things. We have 5 to 12 equipment in that big structure. We have the splash pad. We have some swings, and then we have the lower 2 to 5 equipment. There's a few furnishings through there, not much shade. And the layout is, there's a lot of space in between the pieces of equipment as well. So we're going to start looking at that layout and making it more efficient, really taking advantage of the space and just trying to give it a little bit more play value through different means of play. Next slide, please. Yep. So here are some photos of what we have going on out there now. It's one thing I'll point out. It feels hot because it is. So we're definitely going to be looking at some shade options, looking at removing some of those poor trees in those tight grates, and then looking at some updated play equipment for both 2 to 5 and 5 to 12 and everyone else in between.
Nope, I think Rob froze.
I think I did freeze. Do you still have
Oh.
audio?
Yes.
All right. I can keep talking here, but I cannot see the screen. All right. Well, let's see if we can do this. All right, next slide.
Yeah, we've got the bar chart on the screen.
Bar chart. All right, I can run with bar chart. I might need help on the goals page. So the bar chart. So we have had a few different sessions for community input so far. So we do have kind of an understanding on what some of the must-haves have been. So something like providing swings and providing seating and some new structures and slides. So we do have a general sense, but the hope for tonight is that with some additional feedback from you all, we'll be able to have a better understanding of how to move forward and what are the components that you really want to see in the new renovated playground.
Yeah, and the thing I would add to this was part of a multi-question survey early on in the comprehensive plan that asked questions about the whole park. So we weren't diving in specifically about the playground. We wanted some general comments.
Yep.
I've advanced to the next slide, which is the playground program.
Okay.
I think this is the one that Rob was unable to.
I can handle it.
Yeah,
so in terms of the existing program,
I'm unfrozen now. We're good.
Oh, good. All right.
We're good. All right, back to it. Sorry. Okay. So yeah, so as I mentioned with existing already, we're looking at the layout. We're trying to think about how to be creative with the footprints of these pieces of equipment and what else we can do for additional play value out there. So some of it is looking at the layout, obvious need for shade, obvious need for better access. It's very dated and kind of limited with the play equipment that's out there. So providing more exciting features and just also more variety of play too. Because play comes in all different fashions too. In addition to just kind of structured play with equipment, we'll want to look at more imaginative features, something that's a little bit more explorative or sensory as well. So providing some much more interesting pieces out there. The splash pad is another feature that we've heard is a kind of must-have. So we're going to be looking at splash pad options as well, and thinking about what that might want to look like, or what should it be when it's off or in off seasons, and then looking at the layout and being more efficient with the space. Next slide. Okay. So I'm going to start just showing some examples. And again, it's non-dependent on the location of where the playground is. So this is really just trying to give you a sense of the wide world of play options out there. We're breaking this down into kind of playground characters. So what you think might be best suited for this space in Ringer. And I'll start on the top left, where we have the post and what's called post and platform, which is quite literally posts with platforms, something that is fairly typical in playgrounds. So we have that kind of style of play structure. Next, we have climbing, which might have more ropes or more climbing panels. Sometimes those are more appealing to older kids, especially for upper body development and kind of dexterity. Then next to that, you'd have combination play, which could be a hybrid of some posts and platforms and slides and some rope climbers. The bottom left is a little bit more kind of adventure course, if you will, where it's more linear and you just have more of a route that you kind of can adventure through. The bottom middle, potentially maybe sort of inspired by Vikings going with the ship, but otherwise thinking of imaginative play, you know, thinking what could these structures maybe look like. And then to the the bottom right, exploratory. So that's really like the course, you're going out, you're having moments of discovery, you're finding new things, and it's a little bit more of a kind of adventure as you're navigating the play space. Okay, next slide. And then, as I mentioned too, with you know, there's a lot of different types of play. Sometimes it's structured and sometimes it's not. And our goal is trying to incorporate a lot of play value in different forms, and that relates to our goal in creating a more inclusive playground through various means and different activities. So on the top left, you know, we're looking at spinners. Sometimes these are group activities, which are great. And then we also have spring riders. Sometimes those are single, or sometimes you might have double. We'll have a variety of swings. We'll have belt swings, we'll have toddler bucket swings, and we'll have an accessible swing. We could potentially have some freestanding climbers. Play walls are great, especially for sensory development, which we'll get into on the next slide as well. But that's great for ground level play. And then on the bottom right, going back to the idea of something that's maybe more imaginative or hands-on or tactile. Okay. So with sensory play, you know, we think about those gross motor skills and all different things through smell, through feeling, through audio and everything else. So we're looking at a variety of other objects and activities that could increase the play value in the playground, such as, could it be musical or other types of motion, something that's tactile and that you could feel, some other visual components, or something else auditory related. Okay, next slide. And then the splash pad. You know, the splash pads can mean a lot of different things. We like to think of the idea of also having these be multi-generational too. You know, I think a lot of splash pads have this connotation that it's kids play only, but in a sense where we think of kind of cooling as an amenity, you know, we are being mindful of what we can do to have this be a little bit more multi-generational. So on the top left, you know, you have your more features that would be out there. And the middle top, you'd have your simple water jets, which are great because those are flush mounted, and when they're off, now you have a space that could be used for performances, because it's essentially now just kind of this open terrace, if you will. We could look into misting components, which are certainly fun with clusters of them, but also going back to that kind of multi-generational sense too. You know, it's cooling, but it's not, you're not going to get really soaked with those. The bottom left is same idea with misting. The bottom middle, looking at more of that exploratory or imaginative kind of style of splash pad. And then on the bottom right, more of the water play tables. So something a little bit more hands-on.
So I think we'll shift gears. We'll talk about one slide on dog park components, and then we'll open it up for questions. So I think, you know, we've talked about some of the design criteria for dog parks in terms of the size. You know, we're shooting for about 10,000 square feet, but as Bea mentioned, particularly in the city of Boston, we are sometimes smaller than that. But, you know, 10,000 will be about what we could fit here, depending on the location. And Bea also mentioned we want to be 100 feet away from the residents, the buildings themselves. So any of the locations we were showing tonight meet that criteria. We'd have fencing that would secure the dog park. We'd have a double gate so that there would be extra security so a dog can't mistakenly or accidentally get out. Surfacing, I mentioned pea stone. I know in the chat there was some thoughts on that. There's a lot of variation in stone. There's rounded pea stone, there's angular stone. The angular stone generally is harder on paws. And pea stone is cleaner, easier to clean up than some of the spiner stone. We would have access to water, so a drinking fountain that has a dog bowl, but also a hose bib so that things could be hosed down if needed. There would be furnishings, accessible seating. We would like to have shade. And then, if we have some of these agility features, the ramps and hill climbs, that's something to discuss. And of course, there would be waste receptacles, waste bag dispensers, those kind of things. So this is a point for us to stop, and we can talk about these things specifically. We would love to get input on what Rob mentioned, talked about in terms of the playground, but we can also talk about everything you heard tonight.
Okay, the first person is Bob Pesic. Go ahead.
Thank you. You probably won't know this answer. How much water does the park use? Not drinking fountains, but like with play features, is that recirculated or is that one use?
It is one use. Once you go into recirculating systems,
Yeah.
it
like
is
a
really
fountain.
intense. It's like
Yeah,
you
it's
need to
like-
have 3 different cleaning mechanisms.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
So we try and go with lower flow features.
Yeah.
We try not to use things that are like fire hydrant-esque with,
Yeah.
just Old Faithful.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're mindful of it, but you're right, it is a use, so.
We're lucky we have Quabbin Reservoir, but water is becoming more and more precious around the world, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next person is Sandra. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So this is my first time attending these meetings, so apologies if I haven't really looked through the comprehensive plan yet. I'm coming as a volunteer with the Alton Brighton Food Access Committee, and we're really focused on trying to bring in more green and growing spaces to the neighborhood in the form of community gardens or food forests as a way to bring in more food access, but also increase shade. We know that that's sorely lacking. And we've partnered with the Boston Food Forest Coalition on finding suitable locations. And just wondering if that's something that you would be interested in considering. They usually bring their own funding for these projects. And they've built a number of parks around the city. So they have some ideas around pest management and pest mitigation, because we all know rats are a huge problem. So just wanted to leave that comment there, see if anyone had any questions. I'm happy to follow up with anyone.
Thank you, Sandra. I think that was something that had been brought up during the comprehensive plan process, and I think it was sort of left as a question mark, because the idea being, unless it's a really large community garden, it doesn't really take up too much space. I had reached out to the folks who were developing, it was Public Facilities Department, and they were working on the redesign of the school adjacent to our park. And they had some feedback having to do with community gardens that were going to be part of another nearby project. And I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, so it's not particularly useful. But I think there are 2 things here. One is that there may be an adjacent park or development that's planning to install this. And the second thing is also the organization of a community garden is really difficult as far as making sure everyone's following the rules, making sure there's a wait list, who's following that, all of these items that the Parks Department does not do. And we really depend on well-formed existing community groups to do it. And I think that was also another of the elements, was that I don't think that was we didn't hear that. It was like there were a couple of people who expressed interest in that use, but not a lot of organizational feeling was felt on our part. So not saying a hard no, but I think it seems like there's a better place for it. So I'm happy to talk to you later. And if something has developed and there's a group that's interested, we can work on things. But as of now, we would leave it out of the park plan. Samantha?
Yeah, I just had a quick question, I guess, in regard to the water as well. So this might be just a place of ignorance, but how does the splash pad actually work? Like, is it a situation where the person comes or the parent, and then they press a button, it turns on, now it's on like a 30-minute timer? Is that kind of the idea behind it?
Yeah, it is a timer. It's not 30 minutes though. It's more like 4. You can adjust the timers. And you can also adjust what times of day the splash pad is usable. And most of our splash pads are, daylight hours kind of thing. So. Kin?
Hi again, it's Mike. In terms of the playground equipment, I guess I kind of favor some of the things that are more mixed age. And one of the things that in Europe there's a lot of like ping pong tables, things like that. I don't know if we've thought about that at all. And then the other thing is, at least our experience with the old playground, the splash pad was great when it first went in, but there were water problems fairly quickly afterwards. And, there were definitely quite a few years where it wasn't working. So what I've seen is like, there's little to no maintenance. So nothing should be easy to break or easy, require sophisticated fixing. And then from a playground perspective, I think the ones that are less programmatic, where you can use them in different ways as you choose versus kind of, there's a path through it type of thing. Those get boring very quickly for kids that are in the same neighborhood, so they like them for the first few weeks, but then after that, they're bored. So something that they can, make up their own games on and do their own thing. And I know there's a huge focus on safety, but getting something that's a little bit more exciting is a big advantage. I know, like there's zip lines now and, across Boston and different places. Those are really cool. Something that's just, you get a little bit of adrenaline going, versus being coddled.
Thank you, Mike.
The next person is Zeth.
All right, hello again. 2 comments. I think I remember reading in the original plan, there was a talk of a pollinator garden. I know the mention of the community garden reminded me of that. And I know there's a couple around the neighborhood, and those are really nice for getting the butterflies and bees and all the fun flowers or pretty flowers. Is that still in the plan? I believe it was going to be on that hill behind the whatever home plate is on the ball field.
Are you volunteering to maintain it?
I'm volunteering to volunteer to help plant or work in there. I definitely cannot own the thing. I have my own garden I gotta deal with, and I'm sure my partner would not like me spending all my time over there. But I definitely would be interested in working with people and teaching people about pollinating gardens.
It is something that, obviously you can tell where I'm coming from. It was part of the comprehensive plan. There is space for it. And, it could be something where we plant it through the capital project. And if you have a group of people, because it needs more than one well-meaning person. I also love to garden. I also have the world's worst garden in my house because I never have time to maintain it. So, if you can let me know a number of other people who are interested and willing to kind of participate in this, then we could set it up. And, I think if it didn't work out, then it would just get mowed and go away, which would be a bummer, but it's not a big outlay of funds to establish that kind of thing at the beginning. So
Yeah, I was thinking there's that pollinator garden along the Everett, I think it's the Everett Street Bridge in Lower Alston. As you come off the bridge over 90, it's like off there to the right, like where the commuter rail stop is. I don't know who organizes that, but that might be something to reach out to and see if what it takes. I don't know. I've never done it before, so I don't know how to plan for it, but definitely would be interested in participating in if that was a thing. And then the other comment was just I don't know if this is considered part of the Ringer Park project, but the trails that run up the hill, I don't know what you call that area there, the wooded area. I don't know what you can do about it, but I love going up there. I love taking my dog up there. I love walking up there and hiking up there and getting the view up there is really nice, but it is just glass and trash everywhere. And like I said, I know there's not much to do about it unless you like stick someone up there and police it, but lights, I don't know if lights would help deter or make it more worse, but yeah, I hope we can find a way to address it, but I don't know what the answer is.
thank you, Zeth. Yeah, we're aware of the accumulation of debris, glass, needles in that area, and we would definitely include a section within this project to clean that up. Of course, that still acknowledges that people may arrive shortly thereafter and continue to abuse it, but we would hope that it would be something where if we put the park on a nice footing and give it a good clean, that people will treat it kindly, at least in the short term, and then hopefully it will set a trend for the long term. So thank you. Rita? Is Rita unmuted?
I just unmuted her. I'm
I
not
think you
sure.
unmuted me because I got a thing that says there's Rita North Alston Farm.
I'm unmuting Rita. I don't know if she changed her mind. There we go. And unmute. Go ahead, Rita.
It keeps going to me. This says the host would like you to unmute. I don't know what's going on with the wiring of Zoom, but
I'm not sure either. I'm also unmuting her.
Rita, sorry about this. If you want to put your comments in the chat and then we can read them out loud. I know it's not the same thing as delivering your own statement, but that is the backup option here. Let's try Gerard. And then maybe Rita maybe it'll work itself out.
Go ahead, Gerard.
Okay. Yep. Hi, Gerard here. I walk to the park every day, and I can't help noticing that there seems to be one variety of tree. It's sort of a scrubby looking thing that is really overgrown a lot of the area. So I guess my comment is there any way to inventory the trees and perhaps remove some of the trees that don't offer a lot of canopy? They're just kind of growing there. And if you can do that, you could replant nicer trees and have more tree canopy rather than what's there, which looks like it's been there for a long time, but doesn't really offer very much, I guess, service to people because there's not, the leaves are so small, there's not a lot of shade producing from those trees. Thanks.
Well, one thing is we had a team of certified arborists do a tree inventory in the park. I think we inventoried over 200 trees. So we have a pretty good sense of the collection of trees. And I think in a past meeting, we showed the breakdown of species and species we were concerned about and the conditions of trees. And so we're trying to, or we're going to do some tree work, you know, to prune hazardous trees or remove hazardous trees, and then also do some new tree planting as well to diversify the forest and to increase the shade.
Yeah, great. Good idea.
Okay, let's try Rita again. Okay, maybe not. We'll go down to Ken.
Hello. I just want to add that I actually, of the different play structures or play things, one of the multiple ones that you show about the water play, I think I like the multi-generation mist the most, because I'm remembering back in the summertime when it's really hot, it would be really nice to be able to go and use those mists to cool down. Whereas if it's just, you know, straight fountain shooting up, it's fun for the kids, but it really I'm thinking you have to wear a bathing suit in order to really enjoy those things. But with the mist, you can just walk through it and be nicely cooled. That's it. And then my husband has another comment.
Yeah, just one question. You know, we talked quite a bit about, you know, how great the park is, but how many issues there are with, you know, people up there drinking, taking drugs, etc. Has there been any discussion with the police department about, you know, improved patrols, you know, to address some of that on an ongoing basis versus just, you know, now that we're investing some money in, maybe they'll, you know, the city will like want to maintain it more than they have in the past? Is there a connection between you and the police department, you know, the parks department, and discussion around that topic?
Yeah, I mean, there is, we have contacts there that we go to, and, you know, for discussions like the call box that's there in the park, we had them test it and they confirmed that it's working. I think the issue about patrols is difficult because while there is some activity that results in negative use of the space, there's also just people who are in the woods and maybe not being that negative, they're just there. And I think when you know, talk to any city agency and it's like, well, here's our list of priorities, it's not one of the top ones. You know, they're more concerned about actual violence or, you know, car accidents, you know, whatever. So it's hard for us to elbow our way into the top and say, you need to do this. And so sometimes we do, you know, when it has become reported safety concerns and events happening, then we absolutely communicate that. But I think this is both maintenance, right? And sort of the tone that has been set by more use of the park by people who are potentially staying there, living there. So we're hopeful that, you know, making it easier for our maintenance guys to get through the park will be one step, working with them on this plan to make sure that we're locating things in a place that they can get to easily. And then doing this renovation to sort of set a different tone. And we can definitely communicate with the police to notify them that, you know, we're putting a new foot forward. We'd like this to be something that catches on. and asking them for their help. But I just can't promise that that will result in increased people walking through the park, you know, cops, I guess.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
But
this is Ken again. So I have I'm sorry, I'm going back to the playground. Will there be like a survey, another survey where you send out questions about which playground feature you like and have the kids vote or somebody vote on those? Or because I know you showed a lot and I just, because you showed it in a different screen, I don't remember all of them anymore. And so I can't really comment on which one I actually like, other than once they pass through, I like that one, but I don't like that one. But then afterwards, I don't remember what was given. So would you be giving out a survey again so that people can kind of vote on what features they like? And also the second part is, has anybody talked to, I don't know what the Jackson Man building is going to be rebuilt into. Will there be a school there? And if so, has anybody talked to the schools about the play field and the playground area and how they would use it and how, like, their concerns as well?
there is going to be a school there, and it has not yet been determined what school is going to be there. So there is no principal to reach out to or no student body to interview. And one of our interests initially in phasing this project was to try and time our playground redevelopment with the school having a new population there. But we have the funding now, we are moving forward, and we're creating a design that will be accessible for all kinds of populations, with the hope that whoever moves into that school can use it. I think it's a good idea potentially to do a survey. And I think that may be something where we ask the West End House for some help in getting out the word among their population, their kids. You know, just because I think the community center is, I think I read recently, it's not in that building anymore.
No.
Yeah, so we're trying to find a local source where we could ask kids, right? Because kids, I haven't seen all the faces of the participants at tonight's meeting, but I haven't heard any kids in the background. So, you know, it's one thing asking adults what they want in a playground, but kids are the users. Oh, I see a kid. Christopher Wells. Oh no, that's not a kid. Sorry, it's just a person with a baseball cap. Sorry. Anyway, I'll shut up. Let's try Rita again. You have your hand up and hopefully the wiring is working better this time.
It is working. Thank you for giving me another chance. So I'm also a volunteer with the Food Access Committee with the Austin Brighton Health Collaborative. And I just want to clarify, you know, the Boston Food Forest that we are working with. You mentioned about like who's going to, you know, who's going to maintain it, but they do have a steward program. And they do get people trained in the community. They have a, you know, full model for that. And also they also work with designing community spaces, maybe having chess tables or, you know, a stage or just a gathering places to have events. So I just want to put that plug in for that. And also the, you know, the pollinator gardens that you're talking about, they also do a volunteer, because I've gone to the Everett Street, they run the volunteer events. So it's not just like you're left with that. I just want to kind of clarify that. So the Boston Food Forest definitely, you know, they have a full training for the stewards. So I just don't want to like there's nothing there. There is stuff that they do, and it's you know, it's greening and gathering spaces, tables, whatever the community is looking for. So I just want to kind of clarify that and just put that plug in.
That is great to hear. Yeah, and if you could put any contact info in the chat, or I'm going to put my email address in the chat and you could email me. I can
I
reach
think
out.
Sandra said that she was going to try to connect with you offline on via email, and just and we're actually going to visit one of the Boston Food Forests in a couple of weeks just to see what exactly they're doing and all that, besides just reading about them and meeting with them. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad our system works to let you speak.
Yes, thank you.
I think Kevin, and then we're gonna conclude because we're a little bit over 7:30 and we're gonna try and stick to our schedule here.
Yeah, I see the counselor actually put in the chat what I was going to mention, but the community center is still operating out of the building, and there's a hearing coming up soon, which I will be announcing a little bit more details on. I'm sure the council will be spreading some information on as well, so everybody's welcome to participate in that hearing. But if you're interested in learning more, feel free to reach out by email or just follow the City of Boston newsletters online.
And I think Councillor Braden raised her hand.
Just to let everyone know, we are having a city council hearing on programming at the community center. They had planned to go to the high school, and then that plan was scrapped, and there's been a lot of confusion. So we really want to talk to the community about programming and what sort of programming people would like to see in the community center. So we're having a city council hearing at the community center on October 29th at 6 p.m. And we'd love it if we have a very engaged group of people here tonight who live in the immediate area. We'd love to see as many people as possible come along and share their ideas about what their vision of a new programming for a community center would, and also to build off that what a new community center in Alston in Union Square would look like. So yes. So I just encourage everybody to engage with this. It's an exciting opportunity to vision what a new community center would look like in Alston Brighton as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that info. That is definitely helpful, and I'm glad that there's going to be some more discussion about its location. Just sharing the project timeline once again. And so we're looking for final plans, and this has been an incredibly helpful meeting, and I just wanted to thank everybody for putting your thoughts in the chat, for keeping things respectful. I know that that's not always easy, especially when topic of dog parks come up. That can be kind of a stressful. So Vikings too can be a little bit of a trigger, I think, for some people. So thank you everybody for your thoughts, and we will come back to you in December with some thoughts on a final park design. And hopefully that will reflect much of what we've heard tonight. I think, is there one more slide for this? There we go. Here's our project website. We'll be updating that project page with the presentation from tonight. I'm going to email it out as well to everyone who came tonight. If you can share it around, let me know if you have further thoughts over email. Give me a call, however you want to do it. But thank you everyone for coming, and we'll be in touch.